Hey guys, it's me Simran, and today I'm coming at you with a video I'm a little bit excited for, a little bit nervous, and that is I'm gonna be tier ranking every single class I took at UCSC. Am I doing this because Nina Wang did it? Maybe. Am I doing this even though this trend was dead? It died in 2020. Yeah. Where am I going with this? I forget. To give you a little bit of background about me, I'm Simran. I have a bunch of videos on my channel all about my experience at UCSC, and I graduated this June with a degree in cognitive science, but it took me a while before I got there. I came in as a computer science game design major, took basically every computer science lower div and a couple game design classes, and then changed a major to cog sci my sophomore year with a CS minor, and then graduated a year early with a degree in cog sci this June. Also for context, I am now working in product design or UX UI design. I basically color coded each class into what requirement it filled for me. So I have orange is cog sci, green is computer science, purple is game design, pink or like reddish is just like GE random classes. I don't have a lot of classes in the GE category because a lot of my cog sci and CS and game design or just other categories were taken as like both GEs and also major rec, but yeah, that's why my pink category is pretty small. And then blue didn't fit any category, I just took it because I needed 180 units to graduate, and so I had to take some filler classes to get some extra units before graduating. Also for my rankings, at lowest I have why do I pay to be in pain, because tuition is way too expensive to be crying this much about these classes. Not the greatest, pretty self-explanatory. All right, I guess, are solid middle ground, average classes, a solid good time. And then lastly, dare I say it, maybe it's even worth the money. Maybe this class is single-handedly keeping undergraduate degrees as expensive as they are. Who knows? For the criteria to rank these classes, I don't want to go off of my grade. Just because you get a grade doesn't define the experience. I'm kind of just going off of how much I enjoyed the class, which is very subjective, but this entire video is subjective. How relevant I consider the class, long-term and short-term, based on what I'm doing now and just based on my short-term experiences, like did that class help me in other classes and all that. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna start off with the first class I took at Santa Cruz. Not that this entire video is gonna be in order, because I put these things in order and then I put it in the ranking system and it mixed it all up, and I don't care enough to reorganize it. So first class we have is Kresge Core, which is Academic Literacy and Ethos, Power and Representation. Fancy name. Class you're required to take your freshman year, and it's basically based on your college affiliation. I was Kresge affiliated, so I took the Kresge class. It was a really small class. It was my smallest class in my schedule. It was very high school-like the way it was formatted, which felt weird to me because I was getting used to college classes, but then there was this one class that was very high school-like. My experience in the class was very like, I don't care for it, but now looking back, I found myself referencing or just seeing a lot of references to stuff I learned from this class during the Black Lives Matter movement and just the rise of that. And so I would rank this class as a solid good time. Even though I didn't enjoy it in the moment, I think one of our assignments was to analyze a Jeanette Monáe music video, and we did readings from Malcolm X, and just it felt really, at the time I was like out of my comfort zone, but now I'm looking back and I'm really grateful. CSC 5J is basically intro to programming. It's not offered anymore, but it was like a very basic generic starting ground into how to use Java. I think the transition between this class and the next class was just not there. There was just no transition. I feel like this class kind of felt like a waste of time. Going in to take this class because I wanted to start off at the very basics, bare bones of Java. So I was like, let's start basic, but I feel like this was a little bit too basic. I think I would put this in not the greatest, just because I really didn't learn anything. I feel like there was better ways to introduce us to programming rather than just give us an online already pre-made assignment sort of thing. Since we just did 5J, and 5J was basically connected with 11, I may as well rank 11 while I'm at it. So 11 was intermediate programming. This class was terrible. It was genuinely, we're off to a great start, but this class was genuinely the worst thing ever. A lot of people went into the class and we were like, hey, we didn't really learn anything in 5J, so we're excited to learn something now. And our professor was like, oh, you guys didn't learn anything? Well, good luck, because some of the assignments I'm gonna do in this class, my TAs won't be able to help you with because they haven't gotten there yet. Have fun! I went to every single section, every single office hours, every single study session, cried numerous times around campus over this class, thinking I was gonna fail it. He ended up rounding our grades by like a ton, so I passed, but that doesn't change the amount of stress that I went through for this class, and so I am going to give this class a why do I pay to be paying, because I think this was genuinely one of the worst classes I took. Changing notes, let's do Math 19A, Calculus for science and engineering majors. Basically, there's the 19A, 19B series, which is for engineering majors, and then 11A, 11B, which is for any other major, I'm pretty sure. I think besides math majors. Math majors take the 19A, 19B series. Started in the 19 path, and then I switched to 11 path because because I landed up dropping my major into a minor, and I was like, why would I take the harder one? I may as well just do the easier one. So I feel like the thing with 19A is no matter how bad your professor is, there's a ton of resources for 19A around campus. There's normally LSS, which is like small group tutoring, and MSI, which is like bigger group tutoring for the class. So you're still able to learn and get a decent grade in the class. So I would honestly put both 19A and 11B in all right, I guess, because I learned what I had to learn. Calculus is just a requirement. I really suck at it. I think it's just not for me no matter what. I can never fully understand it, and I've accepted it. I don't think it's relevant now to me, but you know, it's a foundational class you just have to take. Next we have Psych 28. This class is literally its name. It's the fundamentals of cognition. This class made me decide to change majors and become a cog sci major. I absolutely love this class. It was really hard, I'm not gonna lie. The stuff I learned in this class was relevant for the rest of my degree. Like, I've kept my notes from this class till today because I still find it helpful till today. So definitely gonna put this in maybe even worth the money because it convinced me to change my major, and I just had a really good time in that class overall. Film ADV, video games as visual culture. I took this class when I was a game design major to fill a game design requirement. Honestly, this class was super interesting to me because I never viewed video games as a form of art, and this class was basically like a visual analysis or just an analysis of games from an artistic perspective. It's offered from the film department since it's more of an analysis class. Our assignments were to like write papers and to analyze different games, and it was really interesting to see games from that sort of historical perspective. It's like helpful, useful background information to keep in your mind while designing games or consuming content of that sort. So I'd put this in a solid good time. Next we have CSE 15, Introduction to Data Structures. Prereq for this class was 5G and 11 together, and we just basically learned a bunch of stuff about data structures, binary sort, search tree. Being that I'm not into programming or coding now, this class is not really relevant to me now, but at the time, a lot of what we learned in this class was super relevant to 101 and the rest of the CS classes. I would put this class in all right, I guess, because I remember I really liked my professor. This was the first CS class I took where I wasn't crying constantly about the professor. I was just crying about the actual labs, and so that felt really refreshing to me, and I was glad to just, you know, be crying about the content, not how terrible the teacher is. So the lighting might have changed a little bit. I always end up filming during sunset time, and so this is what happens to me. But let's go on and do Psych 2, Introduction to Psychology Stats. This class is another prereq. It's like this plus Psych 28 gets you into Psych 100, which is like the operative you take before you can take any other operatives for cog sci. I feel like stats itself is a really relevant and helpful class. So I'd say it's relevant, but I honestly didn't learn a lot. But it's not because of the class, it's because I took this class right when the strikes were happening, and then we got moved off campus because of COVID. And so I just feel like we didn't learn that much. So I'm gonna put this class also in all right, I guess. I mean, I know like what a median is, so how terrible could it have been? CMPM ADA, Accessible Games. Since I was a cog sci major with the HCI/AI focus, this class filled an elective, but also a GE for me. I went into it thinking it was a GE, so I really did not have a lot of expectations for the class, but it was really fun. We tried out a bunch of different like empathy tools. We learned a lot about like accessibility language, how to make games more accessible, but thing is, when you're designing games, it's very similar, or if not basically the same as designing UI overall. If I can find a picture of one of the empathy tools I designed, I'll put it here. But it was basically just to like make my vision super limited and see how that impacted me playing games, and then come up with a proposal to redesign it so that it wouldn't have that issue. It was a really helpful class. So I would honestly put this class in maybe even worth the money because I really, really enjoyed it. Next class I have is Writing 2. This was pre-COVID, so it was like my only all online class I'd taken. And it was a little bit wonky. It was a little bit weird, and I don't really remember what we did in the class. It wasn't terrible. Like, I remember having fun writing a paper or two, but I really don't remember the content, so I'm gonna put it in not the greatest. CMPM 80K, Foundations of Game Design. I was obsessed with this class for like the longest time. I took this with a bunch of my friends. I had the most fun professor ever. I'm pretty sure only one professor teaches this class, and he is just awesome. He makes this class so entertaining that I literally had fun every single time I went to the class. There was no taking notes. I was just purely there for the vibes, and the vibes are immaculate, but it's a very hands-on immersive class. Very much enjoy project-based learning because I feel like it sticks with me for longer and it feels more relevant. And so this class I would put in maybe worth the money because I really did enjoy it. Next, let's do CSE 101, Intro to Data Structures and Algorithms. Because of the timing I took this class, it ended up overlapping a bit with my CSE 15 class, so the data structure stuff was relevant. I would say this is another one of the classes where it's relevant to CS overall. So if you're planning on pursuing a CS degree or CS minor, super important, relevant class. It's also super relevant to if you want to go into software engineering or programming in general. I know that some professors for 101 will make their tests look like coding challenges for like software engineering internships and stuff, so that makes it really, really helpful if you're planning on doing recruitment for that. This is one of the classes where it's relevant to the minor, but however, it's not really relevant to my career now. And so I would put this in all right, I guess. CSC 16, Applied Discrete Mathematics. This class is completely different from any other math class I'd taken before this. I'd done calc and I was really worried about this class because I was like, I'm not really good at calc, but it's just a completely different set of logic. I think it's really, really important for CS majors, which is why it's a prereq to take 101. I really liked it too. This was one of the first math classes in a long time that I was like, oh my gosh, this is really fun and I really like it. So I'm gonna put this class in a solid good time. AMS 10, you can take AMS 10 or Math 21. Both are basically just linear algebra. Just like discrete, it's very different from any other math class. I'd never done stuff with matrices before or understood how they worked. There's like 3 concepts that once you understand kind of the whole thing. And then it's kind of fun. You're just like playing around with matrices. If you want to go into like game design or more graphic based type work, this class is really relevant. It's not a terrible class. I'm gonna put it in a solid all right, I guess. Research methods in psychology. This was the first operative psych class I took. Basically we have to conduct a research study and like go through all the parts of creating it. If you're planning on going like academia or research in general, this class was super relevant and helps you understand that. Otherwise, for me, I didn't really love it, but I can understand why it's relevant. I understand why it's the first operative you take entering cognitive science. CMPM 176 game systems. 176 was a class I took purely just out of like, hey, I have the prereqs for this class. It's not full and I need an extra class. Even though I'm not a game design major anymore, I did like your classes. So we actually built like an entire board game and like test run other people's board games and people went all out. It was a good time. Ling 80K Invented Languages was another lower div class I took for my electives. I don't know why, I just couldn't get myself into it. I really wanted to like linguistics because I thought that it'd be really cool, but this class in particular just didn't really interest me too much. We basically created our own language and studied a bunch of languages, but I'm gonna put this class in not the greatest. It's nothing against the class really. I guess, I don't know, I don't want to be too biased because it's like the class was fine, the professor was fine, it was completely online, like it was a fine class. I just wasn't that into it. I don't know, just gonna leave it there. CSC 103 computational models. My professor did not really teach me anything. I purely got through this class because I was taking with a friend and she basically taught me everything and she basically learned everything from YouTube. So that gives you the basic understanding of my experience in this class. I don't really know how relevant this class is now, but I did have fun while working on it. But I also did cry about it. Our grade was 80% based on our final. I'm gonna put it in all right, I guess. That's where it's gonna go for now. Psych 129, Human Learning and Memory. One of my favorite classes of college. Such a good class. I'm gonna put in a solid good time. It could honestly even go in maybe even worth the money. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm gonna put it in maybe even worth the money because that class covered how we learn and how memory works, but it was also really cool because it kind of told you like what methods of studying work and which ones don't from a scientific, literal, research-backed perspective. So it's like relevant to my major as in it felt a prereq and helped me understand how people learn and our memory works, but also helped me understand how I learn and how my memory works so I could work on my learning and my memory. 2 for 1 a deal. That's all I'm saying. Then we have Psych 125, the psychology of language. Yeah, I'm gonna put it all right, I guess. And kind of how I feel about invented languages is how I feel about this class. It's not bad, I just wasn't particularly in love with it. There's not a lot of the stuff I learned in this class that like really stuck with me till now. It was all right, it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't also amazing. Why not? Let's finish up my last pink class. That is LOL 65, Religion and Revolution in Latin America. Sometimes you need a GE class that, you know, you have a really intense schedule, you need to get a GE done, but you really don't have the capacity to be taking something super intense. This class filled that requirement. It was not really hard. It was cool. I learned a couple things about Latin American culture, which was fun. All right, I guess, because it's just one of the classes I took to fill a GE. But what is money? HIST C118. I took this as a filler class. I just needed a class and it happened to be a class. Seemed pretty interesting and honestly the content was really interesting. I basically spent the entire quarter writing a paper about the 2008 recession, understand why it happened from a financial perspective and just really cool. So I'm gonna put this in a solid good time. Crown 92, Social and Creative Entrepreneurship. The word entrepreneurship gives me like the ick. Like there's something about that word I just got a little bit grossed out, but I'm gonna be really honest. This class was really fun and I think one of my favorite classes of college. It's a project-based class once again. You basically work with a bunch of people and you develop a product over the 10 weeks, and they go over like the steps of developing a product, making BMCs and SWOTs, and you just go through creating it and then pitching it and just pretending that you're basically working at a startup. Maybe it's because I'm in tech now that I think this class was really cool, but it was a really fun class and I'm really glad I took it. Cognitive Neuroscience, Psych 123. I'm gonna put it in not the greatest. The content in this class was a lot more bio focused than other classes I had taken. I just took it because it was the only cog sci class available that quarter, so I was like, okay, better than no class, and I took it. I love cog sci, I love psychology, but the bio perspective just didn't really interest me too much, so didn't really love the content, and it's not really that relevant to me now. While we're doing some classes I didn't like, we may as well do Intro to MATLAB Programming and Cognitive Science. I'm gonna put this in not the greatest as well. Another cog sci class which I took because, you know, it was the only class available and I needed a cog sci class, so I took it. Really glad I got it because it's already super hard to get psych or cog sci classes. I just didn't enjoy this. I liked the format of the class in a way, but it felt like we were doing like baby beginner steps into MATLAB, and then suddenly bam, thrown like a full assignment where we had to do like 100 different things, and I was like, how did we get here? We were just there the week before. Also, it was like group-based, but it was in COVID, and working group-based projects in COVID just sucked. CSE 183 web applications. CSE 183, I was confused whether or not I should include. This class was definitely the most relevant coding class I could have taken to UX UI, but I ended up having to drop it due to scheduling errors. The plan for the class sounded really cool. We basically started off in HTML, CSS, then we were working in JavaScript, and then from JavaScript we were gonna work in React. From React, we were gonna make like, I think a little bit of database stuff and create like a fully functioning website, which is really cool. It's a bunch of front-end stuff, which is super relevant to what I do now. So I'm kind of really sad I didn't get to finish it, but for the 3 weeks I was in the class, I would put in a solid good time. Did I finish the class? No, but you know, from what I remember, it could have been great. CSE 102, Introduction to Analysis of Algorithms. I didn't hate this class. It just never made any sense to me and I struggled a lot in it. The content is super relevant if you plan on going in software engineering and working with algorithms in specific. So I would say the class is definitely really relevant. So I would put it in all right, I guess. Then we have Management of Tech Seminar, CSE 170. This was just a 2-unit. I needed units. I took it. Why not? Really cool. They basically call in speakers from different parts of the management and tech industry, and they talk about their experiences, what they do, and kind of give you like a little bit about them. And the assignment is just like to write a paper. Literally, it's a super easy class. The idea is just to expose you to different careers. I would put it in a solid good time. CMPM 178, Human-Centered Design Research. I was looking forward to this class for literally all 3 years. It's a upperclassman only class, so you have to be junior or senior standing to take it. So I waited until I was an upperclassman. It's only offered once a year, so I waited till winter of my 3rd year to take this class, and I was really disappointed that in the end it was not the class I was hoping for. It goes over the basics of like design and designing a project. It's literally a case study if you wanted to do that for a design portfolio of any sort. The people in my group, we were all coming from different backgrounds. Like we all had different technical backgrounds and different experiences, but we never kind of merged on it. And then like we didn't actually learn anything in class. That's the biggest bummer. We didn't learn anything in class. We just had presentations of other groups. I would say this class was not the greatest, which is really sad because I was really looking forward to it, but it happens. Psych 121, Perception. I was so upset to take this class because everyone told me it was going to be like 123 and I didn't like 123. And so I got put in this class because I didn't have any other cog sci classes. That's a kind of reoccurring theme in this video. Though I was a declared cog sci major, psych classes are really hard to get. Psych and cog sci in general. So I would kind of just take whatever I got. This class I was really upset and I was trying to switch out of, but I am so glad I didn't get to. It was genuinely one of the best. I think it was my favorite class I took in all of college. This class was really fun and really relevant because we did talk about like how we feature detect and like what is the most salient in the page and how it interests us, which is like interesting to me from a design perspective, but also interesting on a daily perspective, and also interesting from a computational perspective. I would put this in, maybe even not with them. I would make this the #1 class. This is my #1 favorite class. And then the last class we have is actually the last class I took, which is my senior seminar, which is Modeling Human Performances, Psych 139D. It was the most HCI related senior seminar available to me that quarter. And we basically made chat boxes, which was really cool. Understanding computer modeling overall. Some parts of the class I was a little iffy about, but I think overall I put it in a solid good time. I guess the average median experience I had was a mix of all right, I guess, and a solid good time with a sprinkle of maybe even worth the money and a sprinkle of not the greatest and just one class and why do I pay to be in pain, which I think is pretty good. Having only one class down there, I mean, ideally there'd be none, but you know. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it's probably a long one. I know that the lighting was constantly switching, which is gonna annoy me so much while editing. It's what happens. If you've taken any of these classes or have your own experiences, share them down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in another one. Bye!